Oh my God.
It really makes me sick at my stomach.
A hotel construction collapse, possibly caused by shoddy work.
The floor had dropped like a half an inch or so.
The floor dropped a half an inch?
Yeah, he said it stopped because the floor was dropping. As we were taking it down, the floor was dropping like a half an inch or so.
But where were the city inspectors?
It appears it was very easy for y'all to find that they weren't doing their job.
There's a reason why we have inspections.
You understand there's a lack of confidence from New Orleanians in this department.
A Fox 8 investigation uncovers city inspectors falsifying documents, falsifying those inspections.
I believe that if those accusations are true, then that person needs to be fired.
Is it appalling to you, though, if it is the case that an inspector didn't go to the site and then reported that he or she did so?
Oh, absolutely, and absolutely.
Tonight, we look back at our investigation that led to resignations and overhauled the department.
This is a very serious thing.
That's fairly damning evidence.
There's lack of management, there's lack of supervision.
Here's Lee Zurich with Inspecting the Inspectors.
October 12th, 2019, a quiet Saturday morning here in downtown New Orleans until the 18-story Hard Rock Hotel under construction collapsed. Afterwards, workers told us about poor construction standards.
Yeah, they were rushing. I started taking days off because I felt it was unsafe.
You felt the site was unsafe, or?
Yeah, because they were rushing. I just felt it was unsafe.
So literally the concrete above you dropped a half an inch?
Yeah, it dropped. Well, when you see the pole shows bent, you can tell that it was coming down a little bit because the pole shows were bent on an angle. It usually be straight up like this, and it was bent like 90-degree angle. So that tell you right there something was wrong.
But we wanted to know more about the city inspectors who visited the building. If shoddy work was that obvious, that common, why didn't these inspectors see it? Right after the collapse, we started asking the city for inspection records and then GPS records of city inspector vehicles. What we uncovered, a city department mismanaged and inspectors falsifying records.
Guys, we need to go to Viper here and start talking about I need to start prepping the metro area. Damaging hurricane force winds are going to begin moving into our area, meaning the West Bank and the East Bank, within the hour.
Within the last 5 minutes, Lee, it has gotten pretty nasty out here, kind of holding my body down here. We're next to Saks Fifth Avenue in a garage area, so we're kind of blocking the wind on both sides there, so at least we're safe. We can come out here, but it is no doubt starting to push me in there.
This is some video of the northern eye wall approaching Lower Lafourche Parish. You can see really bad now in Lower Lafourche. That is Golden Meadow with the eye wall moving through.
That's right, Lee and Kim, and bracing is the right word. They are starting to feel it now, too. It's hard to imagine that storm is making landfall just north of Cocodrie right now because the wind is really starting to kick up, and by my estimation, we're a good 100 miles away from it. The wind is coming in now from the northeast. You can see the waves really starting to stack up out there.
The wind has picked up significantly, so much so that there's kind of debris flying out in the lots. So we just wanted to make sure to be safe. But I'll tell you, it has been like every minute that this storm progresses, we are starting to see these impacts. I mean, just look at this wind.
I feel like every time y'all go live to me, and all of a sudden a massive wind gust just comes and blows me back a little. Yeah, the weather is no doubt becoming an issue.
This is just a little bit of damage compared to what really happened across St. Bernard Parish. I mean, there's so much damage. The damage is extensive.
Our camera crew, Edwin Good, our photographer, his camera almost fell over. A light almost fell over. So the gusts are coming. You kind of feel it every few minutes or so where it really picks up, and sometimes it gets a little hard to stay. I'm gonna hold on to this rail right here just to be sure. But yes, it is certainly picked up. I'm certainly starting to feel the power. Woo! There we go.
Just take a look. There's an office building right here at the intersection of Canal and Cortez where this roof completely came down during the height of the storm last night, around 8 o'clock, we're told. And you can see this entire thing just came right off the roof. And a lot of this seems like tarp, but there's something I wanted to show you because a lot of this is the top of the roofing, which looks like this tarp material. But you see these giant planks of wood right here. I mean, that is extremely heavy, and that is the reason why we tell people, you know, you don't want to be out during this storm.
We are in St. Bernard Parish right now off Judge Perez Road. Take a look behind me. This is Armand's Eatery here, just past Paris Road here in St. Bernard Parish. Take a look at this massive amount of damage. Take a look behind me here. You can see we have seen multiple campers, boats on their side, off their trailers, and just whipped around in those heavy, severe, strong winds that we experienced overnight during Hurricane Zeta, as it really just crushed several parts of St. Bernard Parish. We're going to take a walk down here on LA 46 to show you a little bit more of the damage that we're seeing. I mean, these are large trailers here that are on their side. And take a look at this. You can see where folks used cinder blocks. We saw some sandbags where folks were using these items to try and, you know, chalk up the wheels on these systems here, but clearly no match for the wind.
Across St. Bernard Parish, there's a lot of damage. Take a look at this. A big tree snapped and fell onto the power lines. Power poles snapped like twigs, and power lines are down across roadways. Most of the parish is without power, and we're hearing it could be days before it's restored. Entergy is out in full force. We saw crews all over the parish. Parts of Judge Perez were impassable last night, but today the roadway is clear. Entergy workers removed the power lines and poles that cross the main streets.
Like many families splintered by COVID-19, Willie Smith was separated from his 67-year-old father, already critically ill in the hospital with the virus. But he was determined to be by his side.
The first thing when I seen him, tears came in my eyes. That's something you wouldn't want to see none of your parents in a situation like that.
Smith's father, Willie Freelou, was admitted to the 15-bed stand-up COVID-19 hospice wing in the East Jefferson Hospital nearly a week ago. And every day since, Smith comes and dresses up in full PPE to stand by his father's bedside, knowing it's a privilege not all families have at this time.
Every day he up here, I'm going to be here. Every day, I'm going to play music for him. I'm going to talk to him. I'm going to pray over him. That's my father.
But with tears in his eyes, he says he struggles coming to terms with his father's eventual passing.
Like I say, it's hard for me to sleep because I know he's sitting up there. I know he's up in the hospital and he's going through something. They say comfortable. I don't like the word comfortable because when they say comfortable, that means he's dying. You feel what I'm saying? And it's really touching and it really hurts me.
Suzanne Linden paid $159 for a drive-up COVID-19 antibody test.
I was feeling tired, I was having headaches, and I was just paranoid about having the virus.
Dr. Kelly Birkenstock, who operates skin clinics in Mandeville and New Orleans, told her she tested positive for COVID-19.
And they told me I was positive. I was in shock.
So shocked, Linden wanted a second opinion.
Got a doctor's order to be retested at Ochsner, and those test results came back that we were in fact negative, not positive.
Before Linden's test, she says she told Birkenstock she had minor symptoms.
So you didn't have a fever?
No.
You didn't have a cough?
No.
Did she say you had coronavirus?
Yes, and she gave me a slip saying that she circled positive for coronavirus.
But even with minor symptoms, Birkenstock prescribed a trio of medications, drugs she claims to prescribe for every patient who tests positive, in several online videos.
If your COVID test is positive, depending on your symptoms, we give you one of two sets of prescriptions. All of them contain the hydroxychloroquine and the azithromycin, as well as zinc.
So after telling Linden she tested positive, Birkenstock prescribed her the powerful antiviral drug hydroxychloroquine. We sent a photographer to her office to get tested. He returned a negative result, but Birkenstock still had a recommendation.
The other thing is the MMR, which is just a little measles booster. That has absolutely 6 research articles, again, on my Facebook and on my website. Research scientists that are showing how it blocks the COVID pathway.
In the midst of the COVID-19 crisis, nurses are on the front lines.
It's extremely stressful because they are super sick.
This Tulane Hospital ICU nurse, who does not want to be identified, says it's the hardest thing she's ever had to do.
These patients are sicker than sick. I mean, we run anywhere from 2 to 10 drips on a patient a day. We paralyze them. We flip them on their bellies to help them get more air exchange in their lungs.
She says the COVID-19 patients in ICU need almost constant attention. And because there are so many patients, nurses are expected to take care of at least 2 of them a shift.
And we're not even really protected because we're issued 1 gown and 1 mask for our entire 12-hour shift. And we're hanging these masks and these gowns outside of the patient's room, so if they're positive germs are like all over the hallway.
The streets are filled from coast to coast for another night of protests.
In New Orleans, crowds gathered in Duncan Plaza before they started marching. We have a live report from the demonstrations.
And right now you're taking a live look at thousands of protesters packing Magazine Street, now coming off Magazine Street. This protest that has been peaceful started at Duncan Plaza, as you mentioned. It then went up St. Charles to Jackson onto Magazine. There are thousands of people who have joined in.
No cameras need to be right here, okay? Back up your cameras. Back up your cameras.
My sister said, no
back up your cameras. Back up your cameras. No, back up.
This is the First Amendment right.
She asked you to back up. She asked you to back up. She asked you to back up. Back up. Move. No.
The demonstrators asked the media to move away from the scene and also chanted, "Leave the public park." We spoke with organizers of the protest this afternoon. They were unaware at the time that the shooting happened, and their protesters were on the other side of Duncan Plaza. They say they're sorry it happened. They say in no way do they condone any types of violence, and that includes violence against the media.
Keeping an eye right now, protesters shut down I-10. We've got 2 crews at the scene of the protest.
A large group of protesters march on to I-10 tonight, shutting down traffic as they want their voices heard over the death of George Floyd. Earlier tonight, they gathered at Duncan Plaza. A group later marched onto the interstate, blocking traffic. Some people got out of their cars and joined the protest. The NOPD says the protesters are between Tulane and Esplanade Avenue, east and westbound. They're asking drivers to avoid the area if possible. Here are some pictures from earlier tonight. Now we go live to Amanda Roberts on the scene.
That's right, Lee. We're here at the Orleans Avenue exit where you can tell there are hundreds and hundreds of protesters and demonstrators behind me. On the other side of them, you see kind of a line of NOPD lights. And for now, it has been relatively peaceful. There was somewhat of a dialogue between NOPD and this group, the organizers of this protest, back and forth, kind of a conversation on the microphone of, "We support you," saying the NOPD. The NOPD telling this group, "We support you. Just try and move this march, this demonstration off of the interstate." But again, just reiterating the message that we support you. You can hear this crowd right now calling for peace. There is a slight movement from some members in this group down the interstate ramp, seemingly to abide by the request, not only by NOPD, but also by the organizers of this demonstration, that we will convene again tomorrow, that we will have our voices heard tomorrow.
Last night's New Orleans protest ended when the NOPD says it used tear gas after protesters tried to rush through a police line on the Crescent City Connection Bridge. Natasha Robin has more reaction.
It is imperative that you understand.
After hours of protesting from Duncan Plaza down St. Charles Avenue to Magazine Street and onto the expressway, demonstrators were met with NOPD officers in riot gear.
If we're telling you that this is as far as we can take you, if we have drawn that line through our actions, I think we have proven through our actions that we're willing to work with you. But if we've drawn that line, that means this is as far as we can go.
I need them to let me address the crowd. Can I address the crowd?
Yeah, just give us a minute.
Chief Sean Ferguson says at that point the NOPD had conversations with some of the protest organizers and even allowed one of them to address the crowd on an NOPD loudspeaker in an effort to calm the situation. Ferguson says that, though, didn't happen.
I'm not on this mic to tell y'all what to do and what not to do. And it's people telling me to tell y'all to turn around. I'm not doing it.
Ferguson says the protesters started encouraging men to come to the front and women to the back in an effort to confront law enforcement.
We're about to cross the bridge. The police already threatened violence if we go, but we're going anyways. Men to the front! Men to the front! All men in the front! Men in the front!
Ferguson says when the protesters attempted to cross the police line, officers shot tear gas into the crowd.
Tear gas!
We did not attack anyone. We did not deploy gas on a peaceful protest.
Well, Lake Charles just took an absolute beating from the storm overnight. Rob Krieger is there live after riding out the storm there. Good morning, Rob.
Yeah, hey Liz and Meg, so we're actually in our Traverse Storm Tracker right now. We want to show you outside some of the damage. We're going to take a tour around L'Auberge so that you can see exactly what happened. This is this pool area here. You could see a lot of the fencing has been damaged. Tim, take a pause for me for a second. So we're going to pan up to the top. Look at this right here. This is some really severe damage to the side portion of the building, that stairwell. This is the southern facing portion of the building, so that was what really took the brunt of the storm. But you can just see all of these pine trees that have been toppled over along this drive here around the parking lot. And then we're gonna, before we end, we're gonna go over to that RV that toppled over. But you can see, we'll show you down. This is the grand entrance to L'Auberge, and it has been a little move for you here on this camera. It has been impacted by those trees that are down blocking the area, but you can see this RV trailer here that is just on its side, blown over in the storm. It was parked out here overnight, and you could just see that damage there.
In Lake Charles, there is massive, widespread damage from the interstate to inside in the city area. There is damage on nearly every building we have come across, from roof damage. Power poles are down, power lines are across the street. You can see this transformer lying in the middle of the street right here. A massive, widespread power outages in this area, and folks are just beginning to assess the damage. We spoke with one man who says he rode the storm out overnight here at his home, and he says this morning, after seeing everything, it really wasn't a good idea, and he regrets making that decision. But now they're just left to pick up the pieces. They worry how they'll be able to even afford to rebuild.
A lot of emotions here in Cameron, Louisiana today as residents try and pick up the pieces after Hurricane Laura and a storm surge they describe as between 16 and 18 feet. Sick. Nora Smith can't believe her eyes. Her Cameron home of the last 12 years is gone.
Nothing. Tree. Few blocks.
Around her, sheer devastation. But the home of her neighbor, James Boudreau, still stands, having incurred roof and window damage.
They all different. Every one of them storms are different. This one come in fast. Probably didn't, the devastation is just as bad. It's just not as much, wasn't as much down here to tear up.
That's because Laura was the fourth storm of the past 60 years to nearly wipe out Cameron, beginning with Audrey in 1957.
If you was down here, you lost somebody, you know. I lost uncles and aunts and cousins.
While Boudreau makes plans to rebuild, Nora Smith isn't so sure.
You have to drive forever just to get any type of food or anything.
Though few are left, Smith and others predict the community will come back.
But the people of Cameron Parish, they're strong.
63-year-old John Leonard, arrested for DWI, his first offense. Leonard forced to sleep on a concrete floor, stuffed in a filled holding cell for 11 straight days. Israel Hammond, arrested for possession of a firearm and drugs, including marijuana. For 12 straight days, the only time he left the cell was for his 3 times a week shower. Police picked up James Blanchard for disturbing the peace. Blanchard tried to sleep in a holding cell like this for 13 straight days. This is Cell Blocked.
We're humans, we should be treated like humans.
It's clearly not legal or constitutional.
Do you realize you're breaking the law yourself?
A Fox 8 investigation that ended an illegal practice that's been going on for decades. One the Justice Department couldn't even stop.
It's like a kennel.
for human beings. That's what it is.
At one point in time, I counted 42 people in the holding tank with me.
We are bringing a legal force down to Louisiana.
In St. Tammany Parish, you're not accused of committing a crime. You're guilty of committing a crime until you go to court and prove yourself innocent. It's backwards from the Constitution.
Here's Chief Investigative Reporter Lee Zurich.
The state of Louisiana has laws, rules that detail how an inmate can be treated. We uncovered a local sheriff's department has been breaking them for years, even decades, and until our investigation, didn't even care. We detail the findings in Cell Blocked. Right here. Tell me when to stop. Recreating a box.
Stop about right there.
Right here?
We're humans, we should be treated like humans.
The size about 20 feet long, 10 wide.
17, 18 people at all times in there, sandwiched in there like sardines.
The floor?
Yeah, I guess it's concrete like this. Hard concrete.
It's harder than that.
We asked 2 Louisianians to retrace their time in a box just like this. Here's the real version, and here it is filled up. No shower, no bed, just a toilet open for the rest of that box to see. 2 nonviolent offenders, one in for driving drunk and fleeing from police, the other for a probation violation, spent more than 2 weeks locked up in this box or holding cell.
Miss you, Mom! Love you! Woo!
84-year-old Rosemary Cox was greeted by her large family after she was released from Slidell Memorial Hospital Tuesday morning. Were you expecting this at all?
No.
She was overwhelmed by the surprise.
This is my life right here.
This is her second bout with cancer. She's been in remission for a few years, and then the B-cell lymphoma came back. She started her radiation treatments, and today's her last day.
She says her mother started radiation treatments in February.
She went to the hospital and had a lung scan and found out it was also in her lung. And so she went through some major radiations with that, and then there was a spot elsewhere in her leg, and so this was her last treatment. Hopefully we'll do another scan and we'll be all clear.
Number 1. Love you, Mom.
After not being able to visit her at the hospital, Cox's family rushed to hug her, but through a protective barrier.
It's great. It's the closest we've been in a while.
I want the real thing. I know that's what we have to do right now, but I want the real thing.
4 generations excited their matriarch is back home.
It's all my kids. Their kids and their kids.
There's 9 of us, plus nieces and nephews, and we lost my dad a few years ago. So she is very special.
You have documentation and you have a multitude of people, which shows a pattern of behavior.
From Orleans and Jefferson parishes,
I really hoped and dreamed to be a model,
to St. John, St. James, the North Shore, and beyond.
She wanted us to pay for packages.
We've also heard from consumers in Mississippi and Alabama.
I'm from basically Birmingham, Alabama.
In pursuit of a modeling career. Even a mother and daughter all the way in New Jersey called us. All reaching out to the Fox 8 defenders, sharing very similar experiences.
Did you take any trips? We did not.
Just like the single mother we previously reported on, the college nursing student and this high school junior, Alexis Reynolds, a high school senior from St. James, found Impact Modeling and Talent Agency based in New Orleans and filled out a talent application. Like the other consumers, Reynolds attended a couple of workshops that consultant Carol Sterling hosted at a New Orleans hotel. She also attended a photo shoot months ago, but says she never received the actual pictures. Reynolds' mother, a law enforcement officer, paid Sterling for a publicity package and trips to get her daughter exposure, but say they never materialized.
A lot of people have worse situations than I do and are in a lot bigger bind with a lot of money that Carol has. It's really sad.
While Alexis Reynolds' family estimates they've spent more than $2,600, the college nursing student in Alabama is out $3,400. The high school junior paid more than $2,000, and the single mom more than $14,000. Just a handful of a much larger group who say this has shattered their dreams and impacted them financially.
just above the skyscrapers. The Air Force and the Air National Guard saluted the essential workers on the ground, on the front lines of the pandemic fight.
It's beautiful, unbelievable.
The blue skies seemed meant for the day. The Gretna Levee proved a prime viewing spot. People took to rooftops. At University Medical Center, dozens of doctors, nurses, and technicians gathered atop the garage to watch an air show meant for them.
It means a lot. It helps us feel appreciated.
What was running through your mind?
The planes are very huge.
2 giant B-52 bombers, older than most of those watching. The first came off the line in 1952. And 2 F-15s, by fighter jet standards, cruising low and slow over New Orleans hospitals. It's been a tough few months, hasn't it?
It has been tough. It's been tough. It's been very challenging to come to work every day knowing what we're up against.
A few civilians picked the garage roof for its vantage point and found themselves sharing the moment with healthcare professionals.
But as the nurses and doctors trickled out and the bombers started to fly over, it just sent chills. It was such a perfect location.
What's it mean to have the U.S. Air Force do this and go to this trouble?
Oh, all their patriotism and a feeling of pride, and that our sacrifices are meant something to everybody.
The Air Force meant it as a visible reminder of American solidarity against an unseen enemy. From the ground, the salute was returned.
This year, the silence was often deafening. But through it rang reminders of what makes us so special as we walked into an unknown reality, watching the world we knew close around us.
What do you do when your whole life is pulled out from underneath you? How do you handle that? Everything you take for granted is maybe not there anymore.
Chef Frank Brightson knew it would take a community that had been through the worst before, but this time there was no end to the storm in sight.
I want my life back. I want my normal life back. I don't like this kind of adventure. I like normal, boring, good days where we go to work, make people happy, and go home. That's what I want. And we're going to get there.
Let me do a test with this color first.
The first step's finding the color in a quarter stained by silence.
When I first came around the French Quarter and I saw all the plywoods, I was just like, this is not New Orleans. This is not the place we all love.
Armed with a passion for New Orleans, artists from all over covered the quarter with life.
It basically signifies, like, you know, even if you've gone through a hard time, like, you can still come out of it, you know, so a heart of stone can still bloom.
As the hue painted hope even in the quietest times, we found the sounds that make us whole. The fairground emptied, Jazz Fest canceled, but the music was there and everywhere. As we fested from afar, a few restaurants found a way to feed an industry that feeds our culture.
It's a huge percentage of the community. Like, the restaurant business is basically the lifeblood of New Orleans. So, you know, we know a ton of friends that weren't as fortunate as us to be still cooking, but, you know, we just feel like this is a small thing that we can do to kind of ease the pain of, like, what everybody's going through.
A few months in, ready for the breather that is summer, that light at the end of the tunnel grew dim as we focused on a future that seemed to be slipping through our grasp.
Quentin Crabb!
Promise of the next chapter helped us turn the page.
I'm really excited. You know, I finally graduated from high school and I get to go off to, you know, the next step of college. I can't wait to go.
Lusher High School found a way to celebrate a lifetime achievement, making that distance disappear, if only for a moment.
Man, I didn't really think it was gonna be all this, you know? When they said we were gonna drive around, I was like, oh, there's gonna be like a few people there, but no, there was a lot of people.
A community rallied, and while home had never been so close, as the celebrations waned, family never felt so far.
It's been tough. I mean, the last time I saw my mom was December of last year.
A need filled in doses that were sometimes too small, but always helped heal the soul.
I told him you were an inspiration to me. because I've never heard you complain. I've never heard you go, oh, woe is me. When I'm having a bad day, I'm thinking of you.
Once the curtain was pulled and the restrictions keeping loved ones beyond arm's reach let us get closer, we learned how dark it got.
I mean, in the beginning with the virus, there were some people I really liked that didn't make it through the virus, and that was tough.
The desperation for touch, sometimes even tougher.
Well, if you can make something good out of something bad, that's all right.
The quiet streets, not so silent, as visitors strolled, guided by new rules.
And most importantly, frequently wash your hands.
Regulations, a new normal, and a desire to help a city recover.
We also got to keep our economy going, so we just came to grab a bite to eat and just kind of cruise around, take precautions.
Traditions broken, but new ones formed. Our world more connected than ever, and for the first time in years, that new normal brought back a piece of the past, a celebration that would ensure the good tidings would roll.
It's brought a lot of joy. Yes, it has. It really has. That's what I said. It kind of makes it feel like we're normal again.
A return to a driving tour through City Park ushered in a holiday season that for once this year brought a fresh breath, a deep inhale for whatever comes next. In a year we're all ready to forget, but we'll always remember. Rob Krieger, Fox 8, Local First.
You quit over this?
Yes, for someone to ask you to commit fraud, and then once you wouldn't commit it, you lose your job. So it's very devastating.
GAT Airline Ground Support is an Atlanta-based company with nearly 70 locations in the U.S. and Canada, including Armstrong Airport. The company provides ground support for some airlines, like cleaning planes and servicing ramps.
Why'd you leave?
I didn't want to commit fraud.
For the last week of June, GAT paid Jarvion Gould for just 6 hours of work, even though she says she worked at least 20 hours.
I've actually been approached when I was there by more than one actual manager asking me to work off the clock.
Instead of paying her for the full work week, she says her supervisor told her to file for unemployment and collect the rest of her paycheck from the government.
I walked away.
You quit?
Yeah.
With the state's unemployment rate around 13%, Gould is now struggling to find work.
I don't know what I'm going to do.
I don't feel right.
This aircraft cabin cleaner still works for GAT.
I got back to work July 1st, and I was told that we would still be getting the unemployment, but we wouldn't be clocking in our 4 hours.
For 2 weeks, from July 14th to the 27th, GAT paid this employee for about 9 hours of work. But during that stretch, we discovered the employee worked at least 42 hours. Here's how. Employees at the airport carry swipe cards to access doors locked to the public. We requested those records and found during the 2-week pay period, the employee accessed doors around 42 different hours, even though GAT paid the employee for about 9 hours of work. For example, on July 14th, the employee arrived around 9 in the morning. The last time the employee accessed the door was 6 hours later, after 3. We have GAT pay stubs, unemployment payments, and door access logs for 4 other employees with similar findings. Employees paid fewer hours than they appear to work and instead collect the additional hours through unemployment.
You want to stop having to file for unemployment?
Yes.
Each week, this employee received about $100 from the state in unemployment benefits, but also qualified for the additional $600 federal unemployment stimulus.
Are you making more now because of the unemployment than you were before?
Yes.
On the west bank of Plaquemines Parish, in a spot accessible only by boat, childhood memories come flooding back for Christian Amity.
It would be hard to estimate the amount of fish that has been caught at this camp in the last 115 years. There has been a camp on this property since 1908.
Here on the Wilkinson Canal, a handful of camp owners cling to fingers of real estate. One man's shack is another man's little heaven on earth.
I always wanted my own private island, and I got it.
Amity bought this fixer-upper from his uncles, the third camp built on the site since Hurricane Betsy in 1965. As with much of Louisiana's coast, the land around it steadily sinks and erodes. That exposes the camps more than ever to the elements.
We are fighting a formidable opponent here. It's Mother Nature.
Ownership here has always involved more than a modicum of risk. This year alone brought a series of storm threats.
We were worried about making it through the last storms. Had we gotten hit, this might not be here.
That was early September, 3 storms ago. Back to that in a minute. But the camp would have been gone long ago if not for somewhat desperate attempts to save it, like the confused mixture of materials that encircled it. Chunks of old sidewalk or bricks brought in over the decades by the bucket load. Anything to hold the place together.
Had we not moved so much material out here, this would be gone because we were connected to those over there.
This was connected to those camps?
That's correct. This land was connected.
So this waterway over here, there was land between all of these camps?
I want to say there was either 2 or 3 camps between this camp and that camp.
Now, Amity has taken this to a more industrial level, paying for the transportation and placement of chunks of concrete.
Can this be saved, really?
Absolutely, absolutely.
His strategy, wrap much of the remaining land in concrete to cut down on the wave action steadily chewing at the island.
It's going to be like Alcatraz Island. It's going to be the rock.
Here's the camp on September 11th, still exposed to easterly winds and tides. And here, nearly 2 months later, sporting its own seawall.
We're replacing all the windows.
Inside, it's like an episode of one of those home improvement shows. Before and after. New windows, new decor, a modern-looking kitchen.
For all practical purposes, it's still a camp, you know. We couldn't make it too nice.
Outside, new siding and a fresh coat of paint. Amity's home improvements may be more elaborate, but his neighbors each fight their own battle. Most have installed bulkheads, which protect not just the land around their property. If that goes, it exposes the land behind the camps to wave action.
It's a true testament to the owners out here and their hard work that this is even still around.
After weeks of work, this crazy 2020 hurricane season delivered one more surprise.
We were worried. Big storm, heavy winds, not a lot of protection out there in the middle of the bay.
Zeta threatened to wash it all away. But Christian Amity believes the concrete acted as a breakwater, knocking down the waves around the camp.
There couldn't have been better timing.
Just in time, it seems, to save his own little island paradise.
It's become an evening ritual for a small group of friends and neighbors who gather with proper distancing on a French Quarter street, enjoying a sound that started here more than a century ago. It's a sound that's been missing until now.
It's been pretty surreal to just be on your own and have to be creative. And it takes getting used to.
Jazz clarinetist Tim Laughlin would normally be playing with a band at French Quarter clubs and festivals. A few weeks ago, he decided to play from his balcony in the middle of the French Quarter.
So the first time you did it, a few folks probably walked by and go, "Oh, what's this guy doing up there?"
Nobody walked by, but neighbors were cracking their windows and coming out. And I'm like, well, this is kind of nice. And I like the way it sounded from hitting the wood balcony floor, bouncing out into the buildings and the air, and the harmonics and overtones all blended together.
His neighbors also liked the sound. They began coming out at a safe distance, bringing a few chairs and maybe a drink to enjoy what they've been missing so much.
So Tim is such a great clarinetist, and he does such a great job, and it just gives you the sense of New Orleans.
It's kind of taking the place of Jazz Fest to a small degree.
Here's a brand new tune I wrote this morning. It's called Isolation Blues.
He really did write this song a few hours earlier, scratching out the chords and a melody on a sheet of paper.
and thought about how I felt playing out there and going through all this mess.
For people who live in this historic center of New Orleans, they've been missing these sounds. The street musicians, the occasional brass band, kids tapping out a rhythm on a bucket, and the clip-clop of a horse and buggy, and the laughter.
You know, this is what brings it back to life. This is the energy.
It's a sweet, mellow, comforting sound that's helping neighbors reconnect with the soul of their hometown.
It's a mural that's supposed to welcome guests to a public building.
No. And I mean, I have a lot of friends that are artists. I think that that's outrageous.
It's just government waste is all it is.
In a new investigation, see a pricey piece of art paid for with your money.
The feds now investigate a former parish deputy, see why they believe he trafficked firearms across the Mexican border.
Plus, new changes when it comes to carnival throws, what riders can no longer toss.
Fox 8 News is New Orleans' most watched late news. Fox 8 Local First starts now.
Good evening, I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Kim Holden. New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell says her family has been struggling with debt for years.
Yeah, the mayor sending us a statement tonight after we reported the IRS says she owes nearly $100,000 in federal income taxes. Tonight, a follow-up to the investigation we broke today about 3 tax liens filed by the IRS on Cantrell's house.
So much for
In 8 of the last 9 years, the IRS says New Orleans Mayor LaToya Cantrell and her husband didn't pay their fair share of federal income taxes. Records filed with the Orleans Clerk of Court show the IRS claims they still owe nearly $100,000.
The concern is going to be, well, if she's not being responsible with her personal taxes, will she be responsible with the city's budget, with the city's taxes?
Dillard University public policy professor Robert Collins says while voters are more tolerant of personal behavior these days, unpaid taxes is something that still resonates.
The concern with the voters is going to be, well, we have to pay our taxes. Why isn't the mayor paying her taxes? I think that's going to be the question in the minds of the voters.
Over the past 5.5 years, the IRS has filed a series of tax liens on the Cantrells' Broadmoor home.
A tax lien is if you have unpaid taxes and interest and penalties. The IRS, if you're not going to pay it, they eventually are going to file a lien on all of your assets, which means you can't sell your assets.
The IRS filed its latest tax lien this week for unpaid taxes from 2018. In December of last year and in 2018, the IRS filed additional tax liens for unpaid taxes. The Cantrells also had a 2014 lien that has been released or settled with the IRS.
Her husband is an attorney, so it's hard for me to swallow. I didn't know any better. If you disagree with these assessments, why aren't you litigating it? You're an attorney, and both of them are jointly and severally liable for this tax assessment. So you would think if they had a case, it would have been litigated, but it isn't. And so why is that?
Local CPA Patrick Lynch says the IRS could eventually foreclose on the Cantrells' home.
Could they come garnish her wages?
Yes, they could.
The IRS could?
Yeah.
When they filed their taxes, the IRS claims the Cantrells didn't pay the proper amount in 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, and 18. Since 2010, 2016 is the only year the IRS says the Cantrells paid the required amount at the time of filing.
I think what's going to be so disturbing for the voters is the number of years. If it was 1 year, you could say, okay, well, this is carelessness. It's an oversight. Filing taxes is very complex. We all occasionally make mistakes on our taxes. So if it was just 1 year or so, people could say, okay, well, it's just a mistake. But when you get into multiple years and when you get into, year after year, it's happening, then it appears more that, okay, this was a deliberate attempt to avoid paying these taxes.
The IRS says the Cantrells owe nearly $35,000 in income taxes from 2015, $32,000 from 2017, and almost $20,000 from 2018. Late tonight, Mayor Cantrell sent us this statement, writing, "Unfortunately, our family has been struggling with this debt for years. We are working with tax experts to resolve and pay this off as soon as possible. It's very painful for this news to be made public, but I know many of our city's residents face similar challenges while they work hard every day of keeping their homes. I still live on Louisiana Avenue Parkway like I always have and will continue to work side by side every day with our residents for a better future for all New Orleanians. We are all in this together."
I think the way to handle it is just to be honest and transparent.
But even then, Collins will be keeping an eye on how the council reacts. The mayor and council have already disagreed on the council's investigation into the Hard Rock collapse. Collins says how Cantrell has handled her personal finances could concern some council members and prompt them to dig deeper into the city's finances.
I do think this will cause the city council to want to dig a little bit further into issues involving the executive branch, especially issues that specifically involve money, the appropriation of money and the handling of taxes.
Because you think from a council member's point of view, this might raise questions about what her management or her ability to manage money, I guess? Is
Yes,
that what you're saying?
her ability to manage money. And also, I think the city council is going to feel if they don't start taking their oversight role more diligently, they may get some pushback from their voters.
Again, the IRS says the Cantrells didn't properly file taxes in 8 of the last 9 years. They did settle the taxes for the first 3 years, 2010 through 12, but still have liens and unpaid taxes for 5 years.
We are going to see some rain moving into our area, and Chief Meteorologist David Bernard has more on what we can expect.
We've got some rain that's been developing just in the last 30 minutes or so. Most of it is over North Louisiana, but a little bit is developing in Southeast Louisiana tonight. Look at this. Houma, Thibodaux, Gramercy into St. Charles Parish, and now spreading into Jefferson, Orleans. Just spotty light rain, but an indication of what's to come. A low is going to move very quickly across the Gulf tonight, and by tomorrow morning, there'll be a shield of rain along the coast. The farther north and west you are, the less rain there will be. But be on the lookout. It's going to be a little wet for your morning commute. By tomorrow afternoon, look at this. We start to dry out. We'll talk about another rain chance and a bigger cold front next week in a few minutes.
All right, thanks, David. A former Lafourche Parish Sheriff's deputy is under federal investigation accused of trafficking firearms across the Mexican border.
The ATF executed a search warrant on the deputy's home, finding many more firearms and ammunition. Amanda Roberts reports.
According to a federal search warrant, ATF agents seized a laundry list of firearms, ammunition, technology, and other items from a former Lafourche Parish Sheriff's deputy, Jesus Frias Lemus's home. ATF agents believe he and his girlfriend, Ana Huerta Valdez, were trafficking firearms across the Mexican border. The warrant says Mexican law enforcement arrested Frias Lemus last October for concealing 2 firearms, firearm parts, and ammunition in their car. It continues to say it is common for firearm traffickers to disassemble firearms to easily conceal while trafficking.
When he contacted his commanding officer when he was first taken into custody in Mexico, he informed him that he had left his duty weapon in the car.
While sorting out his legal troubles in Mexico, Lafourche Parish Sheriff Craig Weber said they received a call from Frias Lemus that Mexican authorities found no probable cause to hold him and he was released. But when he came back home, ATF notified them they intended to investigate further.
They had information and photographs that they apparently had received from the Mexican authorities, which suggested and supported that Mr. Primus's firearms were not his duty weapon and that there had been a potential attempt to conceal them.
Sheriff Weber says he understands that Frias Lemus and his family were from Mexico and would travel back and forth from the country on weekends and his days off regularly. And he even says that his superiors described him as being a hardworking deputy.
When he came back and he was interviewed by the Internal Affairs, his responses were appropriate. I mean, if you have family in another country, it's not unreasonable to think that around the holidays you'd make a trip and go visit your family, and then come back to work.
ATF investigators say 3 days prior to his arrest, Frias Lemus tried to buy 6 guns from a Thibodaux sports store. An employee told him they legally could not make that sale, so he went online and legally purchased 2 of the same guns. ATF says the firearm parts recovered in Mexico match the guns purchased online. But in December, when ATF contacted the sheriff's office wanting to search his home, Frias Lemus refused and tendered his resignation December 19th. In Lafourche Parish, Amanda Roberts, Fox 8, Local First.
Weber says Frias Lemus was with the department for 2 years and to his knowledge has not been arrested. Weber also says it's hard for them to know if the former deputy intended to traffic firearms, but says it's unlikely the weapons that Mexican police seized were duty weapons.
Kenner police believe road rage might have contributed to a crash that killed a pregnant New Orleans woman. This happened this afternoon in the 2400 block of West Esplanade. Catherine Mazzone is there live with more.
I'm not far from one of the crash sites on West Esplanade, across from Lake Trail. Police say 2 of the drivers, both of the ones involved, were crashed into utility poles. It's just seconds apart. One of those drivers was killed, the other still in the hospital. Kenner police say this all happened just before 12:30 this afternoon here on West Esplanade near Power. They say that 45-year-old woman in the SUV and a 22-year-old, Jade Lewis of New Orleans, were both heading eastbound on West Esplanade when police say witnesses report seeing the SUV coming close to the car while trying to get over. They say the car accelerated in response until the 2 were speeding down the roadway.
And at some point, the SUV swerved over in the other lane and clipped the front of the vehicle, which caused that vehicle to turn sideways and strike the first power pole, which was the vehicle that Jade Lewis was in. And the second vehicle continued on the SUV and hit the next power pole at the next corner.
Police say Lewis, in the late stages of pregnancy, was killed on scene. They say no one else was in the SUV driven by that 45-year-old woman. Police say though this investigation is ongoing, criminal charges could be filed. Live in Kenner, I'm Catherine Mazzone, Fox 8 Local First.
All right, Catherine. NOPD Chief Sean Ferguson will address the string of vehicle burglaries throughout the city tomorrow. Thieves broke into more than a dozen vehicles at 2 school campuses. According to police, they hit 4 vehicles in the parking lot of the UNO Engineering Building yesterday morning, then 9 vehicles in Brother Martin's parking lot as school let out.
It's not even just like here on campus. I feel we have another campus that's connected to us, but it's far, like at least like a mile away. It's the arena, and theirs are getting broken into now.
A UNO spokesperson confirmed this is the 3rd report of vehicle burglaries in the past semester.
The city of New Orleans plans to bring back ankle monitoring for juvenile offenders. It's a tool used to make sure they're following a judge's orders if they're released from detention. The city says staff at the Juvenile Justice Intervention Center will provide monitoring, and if a juvenile violates a judge's order, the NOPD will bring them to the facility.
Once it is deemed that the youth is in violation of wherever he is or she is supposed to be, then NOPD will be involved as to once they are notified that the youth is in violation, then they would activate their team to pick up the youth and then transport the youth.
The city says it's working with the State Office of Juvenile Justice to fund the program. It's unclear exactly when that program will begin. The city of New Orleans agrees to fully fund the Clerk of Criminal District Court's office after Arthur Morell threatened to lay off employees. Morell said his office couldn't function unless the city fully funded its $4.6 million budget. With today's agreement, both parties will also dismiss the lawsuits against each other.
The New Orleans Inspector General says no one has been paying close enough attention to the city's traffic camera program. According to a new report, when people accidentally overpaid their tickets, the city kept the money. Nearly $750,000 is owed to drivers. Inspector General Derry Harper says the city also didn't communicate with the public when it lowered the speed thresholds for issuing tickets in school zones.
Notification to the public, that is communication to the public that now if you're going 4 miles over to the zone, you're going to be ticketed, or if you're going 7 miles per hour over the zone, is absolutely essential so that people can adjust their behavior.
The report claims the NOPD failed to properly administer the traffic camera program, which is required by city ordinance. The NOPD says it will address the findings.
The Mississippi River keeps rising. This afternoon, the Carrollton gauge read just under 16 feet. The National Weather Service forecasts the river will top 16 feet tomorrow, start falling next week, but remain high for this time of year. The Army Corps of Engineers says the forecast does not indicate a need to run the Bonnie Carey spillway. However, in past years, a river this high, this early, has often resulted in the spillway opening in the spring.
Lieutenant Governor Billy Nungesser says the plans to develop a controversial hotel conference center at Fontainebleau State Park in Mandeville are off the table. Environmentalists welcome that news, but they say feasibility study was conducted and a state website still mentions the possibility. Nungesser says state parks have tens of millions of dollars worth of needs that need to be addressed.
Carnival crews in New Orleans will no longer be able to throw boxes and single-use plastic bags off floats. Council members passed changes today to the city's carnival rules. If crew members are caught violating the new rule, they can be pulled off the float. Also, anyone wanting to build a stand or structure along a parade route must now get a permit at least 15 days before the first parade on that route. Another big jump in coronavirus cases in China as the U.S. now advises against all travel to the country.
The World Health Organization says there was a record number of deaths in 24 hours, bringing the death toll to 213. Meantime, Chicago confirmed its second case, America's first human-to-human transmission of the virus. The Department of State has requested that all non-essential U.S. government personnel defer travel to China.
The Tigers' incredible football season had quite the unique soundtrack as well. Their impact on social media is worthy of going down in history alongside the team.
There's a lot more that goes into it than probably what people think. You know, it's not just like, you know, putting, you know, just clips together, just getting a narrator.
A lot of times Derek would text me on Sunday and say, hey, here's what Coach O's talking about this week. Here's the message he's given to the team. Let's try to connect the script to that.
Where we come from, nothing is given. Everything is earned. You finish what you start.
The Tigers left their mark on the field and online thanks to their hype videos that went viral week after week. Friday on Fox 8 News at 10 p.m., Chris Hagan goes behind the scenes with the LSU creative team that made the magic happen.
The Port of New Orleans purchased a piece of artwork that costs more than many port employees make in a year. But the port says it did nothing wrong, as you'll see in our latest investigation.
Hello. A walk into a building.
Hey, we're here to see the mural on the 4th floor.
To see a pricey piece of art paid for with your money.
Been waiting here a few minutes now.
It took about 11 minutes to find someone to escort us up to see a mural tucked deep into a public building that this public agency says is meant to welcome visitors.
But when you see that kind of abuse, I mean, that's ridiculous.
This month, the Port of New Orleans installed this painting commissioned by the owners of this Royal Street home back in 1993.
What would you pay for that?
Probably thousands.
I mean, this looked like it could be up in like couple thousand range.
Try $31,500.
That's some bull. I mean, excuse my language.
No, and I mean, I have a lot of friends that are artists. I think that that's outrageous.
It's just government waste is all it is.
But there's more. That's because the port spent an additional $18,500 to transport and install it. The total cost to taxpayers, $50,000.
That's our money, huh? Going to good projects like that. Huh?
So it's like $50,000 for that.
That's good. They must have excess, huh? I'm laughing when I say that.
The mural is on the 4th floor of the Port building in the hallway between the executive office suite and the coffee room across the hall from the boardroom.
Have you ever been up to the 4th floor of the Port?
I hadn't been in there, period.
You think a lot of
In
citizens
70 years, I hadn't set foot in there. And I guarantee you, 90+% of the state population hasn't either.
One reason why, you can't just walk up there. You need an escort to go.
And that's our money, the citizens of Louisiana's money.
The port says its mission is to drive regional economic prosperity by maximizing the flow of international trade and commerce as a modern gateway.
I don't understand how that mural helps them accomplish that goal.
Port records show an operating loss each of the last 3 fiscal years, $5 million in 2019, $6 million in 2018, and a $9 million operating loss in 2017.
So why do you go spend $50,000 for cosmetics? I don't consider that prudent. I don't believe any private entity would spend that kind of money for artwork if it doesn't directly help them achieve their profit goals.
A Port of New Orleans spokesperson initially said they wouldn't be available for an interview. That's when we showed up to the building to see the mural. After that, a Port employee called us and scheduled an interview for this morning. But 90 minutes before the interview, he called to cancel. Instead, the Port sent us a statement writing the Port acquired the mural Port of New Orleans using funds from our budget for its artistic depiction of New Orleans' bustling maritime riverfront in the mid-19th century. All procurement rules were followed and the purchase price was below appraised value. French artist Pierre-Marie Rudel painted the mural for the owners of the home on Royal Street. The owners got it appraised for $35,000, but sold it to the Port for a slight discount.
$50,000 to decorate a wall.
You're getting back in your car and you're still talking about
Yeah,
that.
well, sure. When you see that kind of abuse, I mean, that's ridiculous.
To the New Orleanians we talked to, it's all a big waste of public money.
That's a lot. That's a lot of money. $50,000 could probably be better spent on something that's not so cosmetic.
A cosmetic addition that didn't go out for public bid, that the Port says never received board approval and was well within the CEO's spending authority.
These people have a fiduciary responsibility to manage that money and spend it wisely. If you can show me that that painting helps them generate economic prosperity in the Tri-Parish area, good, I'm open to it. I can't see how that does.
The Port bought the mural a year ago, but didn't move it into place until this month.
Well, the Pelicans will have a player in this year's NBA All-Star Game. Juan Kincaid will have details coming up in sports.
And we already have rain breaking out across the South Shore. Could be a wet commute. Your Weather Authority forecast right after this.
Now, your Weather Authority forecast from David Bernard.
It is turning wet out there. Here's the big picture on Viper. We have light rain breaking out in our area, light to moderate rain in North Louisiana. That's where most of the rain is falling tonight. Now, north of the lake, not too much action. Starting to get some sprinkles across areas of Interstate 12 running between Hammond and Ponchatoula. But the greatest batch of light to moderate rain is over Bayou Country and back into the metro area. In fact, here's a look at Jefferson Parish. Light rain and showers moving through now, and even a few sprinkles across Orleans and portions of St. Bernard. So wet tonight and wet for the beginning of tomorrow morning, 60% chance, and then we dry out. With the clouds and the rain, we probably stay in the 50s all day. There could be some clearing late in the day, and maybe somebody will pop to 60, but it's going to be about like what we saw this afternoon. How much rain falls between tonight and tomorrow morning? Most of it is south of the lake and on the Gulf Coast, north and west. Don't expect much rain, and even this that falls looks like it's going to be well under 1 inch. So here's our low pressure developing tonight in the Gulf. That moves northeast. So here's tomorrow morning. Notice most of the rain is offshore. So a lot of us are probably going to get by with little, if any, rain. And by tomorrow afternoon, we start to dry out. Saturday looks pretty good. Now, there's going to be some clouds blowing by, Uh-oh, is that a sprinkle? I'm leaving rain out for now, but it'll be breezy and cool with a mix of sun and clouds, and then we're full-blown winter sun on Sunday after a cold start in the morning. 60% chance tomorrow morning and a 60% chance next Wednesday. That's our next strongest front coming in on Wednesday, and before Wednesday, we're going to have quite a warm-up. Now, this weekend, there could be 30s on the North Shore, maybe even Saturday morning, but more likely on Sunday morning, and then look at the warm-up, 74 as we go into Tuesday. There's your Delta World Tire weather. Phone 500-2888. Sports is up next.
Fox 8 Sports is sponsored by Nissan. Innovation that excites.
Brandon Ingram is a first-time All-Star. He's been named as a reserve for the West team, and it's much deserved. He's averaging a career-best 25 points per game this season, and he's gotten some help the last 4 games from #1 pick Zion Williamson. Pels just played the Grizz 10 days ago, but Zion's first game wasn't until 2 days after that against the Spurs. He said he's looking forward to going against the guy he grew up with in South Carolina.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. We came a long way. I'm happy for him, but when we're on the court, I'm not thinking about that. I'm really just trying to get the win.
And tomorrow night's game tips off at 7 o'clock. The Pels will be in Houston on Sunday, hosting Milwaukee on Tuesday, visiting Chicago a week from tonight, and February 8th has them in Indiana to face the Pacers. Now to the Saints, who are waiting on Drew Brees to make a decision, and they hold all the cards on restricted free agent Taysom Hill. Unrestricted free agent Teddy Bridgewater, though, big unknown. A big payday is coming his way because he showed that he can win games this season. He won all 5 he started this season, and it helped that he was playing in the right system.
Same system, same terminology, same everything, but there were certain comfort level plays that he enjoyed probably more than Drew and vice versa. And so our jobs really is to give them the stuff that we feel like they do best. It was awesome coaching him. I mean,
I'm sure.
When I say that now, there's something about his leadership skill set, and the players responded.
And don't forget, right after this newscast, a special Super Bowl edition of Game Plan at 10:35, and the big game, of course, this Sunday, Super Bowl 54, right here on Fox 8 at 5:30. What you got, Lee?
In the game?
In the game.
KC.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think so.
I think San Francisco.
You think San Francisco?
I don't want
They're
the
good.
49ers.
Well, I don't want them to win, but I'm just
Who do you
saying
think's
that's who
gonna win,
I think's
David?
gonna win.
Thanks, David.
All right.
Kansas City.
All right.
I'm with
we'll
you,
revisit
Kim.
this
San
on
Fran.
Monday.
I'm with you.
Boy, that took a while.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Fox 8 Game Plan is next. Our next newscast, Mr. Bernard, can you answer this quickly? Come on.
4:30 in the morning.
Man, that's good.
With the Fox 8 mobile app, you'll never be without Fox 8 News. Sign up at fox8live.com for text and email alerts during breaking news and weather. Sponsored by the Fox 8 Storm Tracker, powered by Nissan.